Kyle Seraphin.
Kyle Seraphin.
Kyle Seraphin.
Recently suspended FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Former FBI whistleblower.
Indefinitely suspended for telling the truth.
Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. We're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today's Wednesday. It's November the 13th. I got to look up to the corner and tell you it is 5 p.m. on the East Coast. We are rolling live right now on rumble.com, and thank you so much for all of you joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you for all of you in the live chat, which we're going to show you. You'll notice we don't have as many people over on YouTube in general, and that is going to be the announcement of the day. Today is the last day we're going to be putting this out on YouTube in this format. We'll upload some clips, and we'll give you an opportunity to be able to see it in a YouTube edited format. But if you want to see the real thing, you're going to have to do it on X. You're going to have to do it on Locals. You're going to have to do it on Rumble. And by the way, let's go ahead and say thanks to the folks over on Locals. If you guys want to join the program over there, it's KyleSeraphin.com, KyleSeraphin.com, KyleSeraphin.com. Even if you lose the address, you can go to KyleSeraphin.com, click on the show logo. It'll take you right into the feed when you are a subscriber. And go ahead and do that if you guys are so inclined. A whole lot is going on. Right now, I have a twitch underneath my right eye that feels like I might be having a stroke because there's so much news coming in the Trump transition. That's what's going on right now. Everything is happening all at once. We'll probably have something break that I won't even get to in the middle of this program. So make sure you guys stick around. Let's say thanks to our sponsors over at Patriot Coolers to get started, and then we'll dive into this madness. Here it is, Patriot Coolers. They are the OG sponsor of the Kyle Seraphin Show, and you can find them at patriotcoolers.com. There's 2 O's in Coolers, just like there's 2 O's in Goose. patriotcoolers.com. Use that promo code KYLE and save yourself 10% on whatever you get. Let me just show you something because it's starting to get close to retirement age. This is my Gen 1. I think they're on like Gen 3 or 4 now. Gen 1 Patriot Coolers tumbler. It's got stickers on it because I'm a nerd like that from my suppressor company. And yeah, we're still rolling it. This is the one that I used to carry on surveillance when I worked for the FBI. It is the thing that sat in the car with me every day. You guys know there's a couple things you need if you want to do surveillance, if you want to spy on Americans. I only did like criminals and drug dealers. But if you're going to go do that, you got to do it in one specific way, and that is you need a pee bottle and you need a cup of coffee. If you want yours to stay hot or cold, get yourself a Patriot Coolers tumbler and check out the show notes. You'll find that there is the Kyle Seraphin collection, whatever that may be. It's got our engraved badges and flags, and they are pre-sketched on there, so you don't have to mess with them. Again, promo code KYLE to get yourself set up right there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's do this. Here it is, the tracking the Trump cabinet picks. CNN is having a virtual meltdown. It only takes you 1 minute to read this because actually it takes way more than that. We are getting wild. Trump tracking new cabinet picks, new people in the administration. Says right here, President-elect Donald Trump has moved swiftly. This is a big change, by the way, from that 2016 end of the year kind of experience to announce his selection for the next cabinet. Key administration posts are getting lined out as we speak. There may be more as we go. And CNN is projected that Trump would win the second term. So they are now rehashing old news. They're just trying to deal with it. I got some funny little clips later on of folks on the liberal left that are just trying to get there. They just can't quite get there. You guys want to see what it looks like right now? Here we go. Susie Wiles is the chief of staff. We got Pete Hegseth. If you guys haven't seen him, he is going to be the Secretary of Defense. We'll talk about him in a bit. The Department of Homeland Security is going to fall underneath Kristi Noem. So that's interesting. Elise Stefanik going to represent at the United Nations. We talked about that on Monday. Ambassador to Israel is Mike Huckabee, evangelical Christian. That's a thing. Here we go. The special envoy to the Middle East, I'm not as familiar with. Mike Waltz has taken over the NSA, the National Security Advisor position, which is going to be a lead piece of the sort of domestic and foreign security apparatus that we have. Let's talk about this also. It's not on the list, but Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. She's going to be the DNI. So we're going to have a former, current National Guard's Army PSYOPs officer running the DNI. It's just getting wilder. Lee Zeldin going to the EPA. Lee Zeldin, not a big fan of government regulations in the environment, so I am here for that. And Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy going into the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. I'm here for that one. We've got a lot on that. And then Tom Holman is taking over as a border czar. So let's break away to a clip for just a moment here. Let's start with DOGE. We're going to get there in a second again, but I just want to start off with a sort of like thing that I keep hearing. Many of you probably hear this as well. I'm a child of the 90s. I remember very, very specifically the movie Office Space, and maybe you guys do as well. The movie Office Space featured these fantastic characters that have been lampooned and have been making fun of what they called corporate efficiency experts. And these corporate efficiency experts are called the Bobs. They came in and they made everyone interview for their jobs. So there's an obvious one-to-one comparison with the idea of a DOGE, a Department of Government Efficiency. If there was ever an oxymoron, that is it. Creating a government department to create efficiency within the government, you just can't make it up. It's kind of like military intelligence, except to the nth power. Here's what the Bobs did in Office Space. Someone kind of memed like a half-ass version of the face of Elon and Vivek. So we'll show that, and then we'll do the more fun one in a minute.
What'd you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
What's wrong with that guy's face? Whoever memed that did a terrible job on those poor men. The thing is, one of the Bobs has to have a mustache. For some reason, he does not. So in any case, the cabinet is starting to come together. And the thing that was just announced before we went live here, which will be very fun for some of you, boom. Trump says he's going to nominate Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida to be the Attorney General. Oh, boy. I said it on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. I said it earlier today that let's effing go is the Allah Akbar of the millennial and Gen Z types. And I'm just saying, like, let's go with this one. I'm here for that. He's been a friend to the Suspendables. He's got Steve Friend's phone number. This is the kind of people that make me very, very anxious about what's coming up in January. I can barely wait. It's like Christmas. And we even have Christmas in between. And I got a birthday coming up too. So how about all of that? Folks, getting wild. They don't know what to do, by the way. Straight up meltdowns, just concern left and right. We're seeing just fearfulness coming out. This is the AP saying President-elect Donald Trump said he's going to nominate Republican Representative Matt Gaetz. The key is all these people, even though they're leaving their spots in the U.S. House, which they just officially claimed as well. We'll talk about that in 1 second. But that's going to be folks that are going to be safe places where we can refill those seats. So I guess we go. Here's what he said. Actually, let's just do it in the man's words. There is Donald Trump's announcements. You got to love a guy that's going to go to social media to make announcements for the cabinet like this. Here it is. It's my great honor to announce that Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida is hereby nominated to the Attorney General of the United States. Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious lawyer trained at William and Mary College of Law, and he's distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperately needed reform at the Department of Justice. I know people have some misgivings, but I'll just tell you, all the right things are being said in public and in private, so that's not nothing. Now, he's also done this thing, which we're just going to take a deep breath, and then we're going to look at it. This is House Resolution 374, the Abolish the ATF Act. And for those of you that can squint very closely or zoom in on your screen, what you are seeing is that it's sponsored by none other than Representative Matt Gaetz. Can we talk about the implications of having an attorney general that has introduced legislation to eliminate one of the departments that the attorney general oversees? like the ATF, my friends who are ATF agents? Are you now thinking maybe you might need to make a lateral transfer? It's possible to do it still. Here's the other really wild thing, and maybe you've never heard this before. We have a guy that's going in as the vice president, the president of the Senate, and he said these words, which we highly endorse at the Kyle Seraphin Show.
We need to just abolish the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in the first place. Why does it exist if it's not preventing the gun running on the southern border by the drug cartels, but it's spying on American citizens exercising their constitutional rights?
Why does it even exist? It's really simple. It exists because it should be a convenience store, right? Alcohol, tobacco, firearms, all things that are legal. In fact, explosives, the BATFE is the actual name. Explosives are also illegal to own. In fact, one of my buddies was telling me at one point that he wanted to buy 10 acres of land in Texas because that was the provision. As long as he had 10 acres plus, he could buy dynamite and store it. You usually have to have a magazine or something to be able to put that stuff away in. But yeah, let's get rid of the ATF. They almost did it in the 90s, folks. The last time that happened, the ATF went out and did some big work. They got involved in a compound at Waco, which is my first introduction to the FBI and the ATF. They did some wild things at Ruby Ridge, which seemed completely inappropriate to anybody who had the wherewithal at the time. And as someone who grew up watching it, not really knowing, and thought the government was the good guys, by the time I was of age, I also knew they were the bad guys, and they proved it to us over and over again. So once again, Trump nominating Matt Gaetz of Florida to be AG. I'm really hopeful that we'll get a nice settlement. That's kind of what I'm hoping for out of all this. Like, having the right people in office just means that I can maybe we get a little bit of justice, because we have multiple lawsuits pending right now. I actually had a funny conversation with Tracy Beans, for whatever that's worth. And I said, Tracy, you want to find something? There's a story we're going to cover in a minute. And she said, yeah, sure. Like, I'll just look at it in Pacer. What's the number of the case? And I was like, oh, it shouldn't matter. Just search my name in Pacer. I should be the only case. And then I went, oh no, I'm actually suing the Attorney General in his official capacity in the Middle District of Florida. We have a lawsuit against Merrick Garland and the FBI and the DOJ in the Southern District of Texas. We had some other stuff in the Fifth Circuit coming out of another thing in the Southern District of Texas. Yeah, I got a bunch of court cases. I forgot. I'm all over the place. And one of them, it turns out, actually doesn't have my name spelled out. It's actually redacted, and we're going to talk about that in one moment. I actually found out about it through a Politico reporter, whatever that's worth. Very strange. How about this one? This is kind of funny. There's multiple different news outlets that are covering the return to the White House because Donald Trump went to go meet with this old guy who apparently is still occupying that seat. He looks like he is about ready to fall over. I've got a funny little clip of just how out of it he still is. But he says, welcome back, where Joe Biden offered Trump the smooth transition he never got as president. It's very snooty reading this stuff from CNN. I don't know how else to take it. They're acting like Joe Biden is some kind of a hero. This is the guy that they threw out in a soft coup, right? The last time Donald Trump was in the Oval Office, he scrawled out a 2-page letter to Joe Biden in his distinctive jagged penmanship and slipped it in the drawer of the Resolute desk. And notwithstanding the note's surprisingly gracious tone, he walked away from the building, defeated and bitter. We kind of had a little thing going on right there where they had militarized Washington, D.C. Do you guys remember that? They had troops everywhere. I was working in D.C. at the time. They had like a green zone set up, and they had anti-scale fencings everywhere, and they acted like somebody was about to. It looks like what I think probably divided Berlin looked like when the Berlin Wall was still up. So, for whatever it's worth, I think Donald Trump did the right thing, and he left before the government or the military came after him. In any case, we'll keep pedaling along on this little story here. Return to the White House Wednesday, that's today, for a meeting with Biden in a vastly altered circumstance, emboldened by a likely popular vote victory. It's likely. It's only likely, people. And he's basking in his return to power. The fire crackled. Who writes these atmospherics? Do you ever read this stuff and just know like how utterly unserious these types are? Congratulations, he says. But he also said this to some poor lady. Let me find the clip for you guys. Some poor lady proved that Joe Biden is just as old and doddering and confusing and weird as he's always been, or at least through this presidency. Ready? This is what he says. If it's hard to hear, I'll repeat it in a second.
President Biden, do you think that you can get a hostage deal by the end of your term?
I think you can get hit in the head by a camera behind you. All right. Thank you all. Mr. President.
He says, do you think you can get a hostage deal? You probably heard that. That was screaming in your ears. And then I had to turn up the volume as high as possible. And he says, do you think you could get hit in the head by the camera that's behind your head? Like, He's just out to lunch. Just the same Biden that we've had from the beginning, which is the Biden that just said, I'm not going to answer questions to the press. I do not have to serve the American people. They promised transparency. They gave us the opposite. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with this nonsense. Maybe that's why the guys over at Pod Save America, which is a very left-wing podcast, they just don't know who to blame over the loss. I'm going to play this because I just found it very interesting earlier this week. So here's a little taste of, it's really Joe Biden's fault. It's Joe Biden, y'all. That's who to blame. They got to find somebody. Why not an old white guy?
Joe Biden's decision to run for president again was a catastrophic mistake. It just was. And he and his inner circle, they refused to believe the polls. They refused to believe he was unpopular. They refused to acknowledge until very late that anyone could be upset about inflation. And they just kept telling us that his presidency was historic and it was the greatest economy ever. We just heard him again say that it's the greatest economy ever. Clearly, 70, 80% of voters don't believe that. They don't believe that about their own personal financial situation, but they just keep telling us that. And then after the debate, the Biden people told us that the polls were fine. And Biden was still the strongest candidate. They were privately telling reporters at the time that Kamala Harris couldn't win. So they were shivving Kamala Harris to reporters while they told everyone else, not a time for an open process, and his vice president can't win, so he's the strongest candidate. Then we find out, when the Biden campaign becomes the Harris campaign, that the Biden campaign's own internal polling at the time when they were telling us he was the strongest candidate showed that Donald Trump was going to win 400 electoral votes. That's what their own internal polling said.
There were polls showing 80% of voters thought Joe Biden was too old to get a second term before the debate. And then we all watched the debate. And then in the last few weeks, Biden was campaigning and he said, we need to lock Trump up. He created a controversy over whether Trump supporters were garbage. He said, the weird thing about slapping Trump on the ass. Like his moments on the campaign trail weren't flawless either.
You cannot.
It's absurd. It's
absurd. Trying to be generous here.
I'm not. I'm done being generous.
They're done being generous. They're done being nice. They're done being friendly about all this. Yeah. Well, there is a mandate in place right now, folks. The Republicans are going to retain the House. That was just announced. Looks like we saw that about 2:27 Eastern time. Our favorite Steve Collinson over there reporting this thing. And so in the last couple hours, we're finding out that they are officially going to claim it, according to CNN. That means that they have complete dominance. They have all of the sections. And we also just heard, and this is not necessarily the greatest news, but we just heard that that John Thune is going to take over in the secret ballot that went for the Senate Majority Leader. So, okay, that guy better watch himself because he is now going to be dealing with an expected mandate and a popular vote and a president sweeping in on this. Let's just go historical for just a second. If you are a constitutionalist and a constitutional originalist, and you don't think that the 16th and the 17th Amendment are great, if you think that we ought not to have a federal income tax, if you think that we ought not to have direct elections of senators, and there's a great reason why we ought not to, it's worth knowing that the Senate's not supposed to represent us as the people. The House is. It actually should be much heavier. But the House should represent us as a people. It actually shows how divided we are. And the Senate is supposed to represent the majority of the state governments, the state houses. That's who used to appoint these people. You never used to have a say in this until 1913. And so if you remember that and you feel that way, a couple of things can be maybe on our minds at the same time. Thing number one, this guy has to stay in line. There are a lot of people who have a primary coming up and they've got a re-election campaign every 6 years. A third of the Senate turns over. So we're going to be looking for that. Turns out Thune's not up, but some of his buddies are. Sounds like Cornyn is. Sounds like a couple of other places might need to watch their backs. They stabbed Rick Scott in the back. Rick Scott was not the best candidate. He was the best of the three that was floated forward, but there are better options than that. So that's kind of gross and kind of sad, and it's not the best thing for a new Donald Trump sweeps into power, but having a little bit of a check is out there. It's not the worst thing. So we're just aware of that. We're just keeping that in our back pocket. In the meantime, suddenly principles are back in fashion again. Again, as I mentioned, this check and balance thing, it is supposed to happen. All the branches of government, you're supposed to have the states are supposed to agree. The people are supposed to agree. The person that's supposed to execute is the president. We weren't even supposed to be able to vote him in. And then you're supposed to have this referee called the judiciary. This is the thing that I find the most appalling. In addition to the leftists now trying to cry about Joe Biden, they're also suddenly finding principle. Remember that they will always play the game whenever the game suits them. They will play those rules. Otherwise, they're happy for demolition derby. What do we say on this program? We talk about the fact that Republicans and people that are conservatives, they like to play by the rules of the game. They're sitting down and playing chess or checkers, 3D or otherwise. And Democrats are playing demolition derby. They drive in a monster truck and they smash the table and all the pieces, and they do not care. Except when the rules work in their favor. We heard it the other day talking about lawfare and how they are now suddenly the plaintiff and they're in the driver's seat being able to get the federal judiciary to go ahead and work with them. That's something they hope. Here's the other thing that they really hope. They really hope people are going to abide by their oath of office. Well, it turns out you all had a chance to do that sort of thing, and you got rid of guys like Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin, and you made enemies of people like George Hill and Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. We're going to talk more about that in a bit. But here it is. This is a guy named Jeremy Bash. He's one of the 51 spies who lies. You remember them. They're the one who said that Hunter Biden's laptop had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Check out this plea that people follow their oaths. Spare me.
Part of being institutionalist means you believe and subscribe to the view of separation of powers in our constitutional system. And you kind of hit this at the top of the show. We're going to be entering a period in which Donald Trump not only controls the entire executive branch, his party will control the Senate, probably the House, and a significant majority of the U.S. Supreme Court. So anybody who has taken civics understands that when you control all three branches of government with a political party, it's much more challenging to have checks and balances. And so as difficult as it is to contemplate this at this moment, Nicole, I think we have to rely on Republicans, Republican elected officials, Supreme Court justices, and people inside government and outside government who are willing to continue to have checks and balances, to continue to hold the executive branch accountable. If there's an unlawful order given to the United States military, I expect, and I think it will be the case, that uniformed military will not carry out unlawful orders. If these people try to politicize the work of the Central Intelligence Agency, I know the people who work at the Central Intelligence Agency, they will not allow their work to be politicized. They will speak the truth, and the truth will set them free. That's emblazoned on the wall of the original headquarters building at Langley. There's a kind of a mode of operating, a view, a loyalty to the Constitution that honestly is bigger than any other idea of who's in power, who's your commander-in-chief, who's calling the shots in the executive branch. And I think we can have faith in people who believe in these institutions.
Suck it. Jeremy Bash, what a statement. Suddenly has discovered principles, has discovered the oath of office, has discovered that there are reasons. Listen, you don't think that people will disobey or will actually rather obey an unlawful order? We just saw what happened with the COVID crisis. And what we saw was people lost their jobs. They lost their livelihood. Some of them lost their freedom, particularly those in the military. They were thrown in the brig. They were locked up in containment and confinement. They were demoted. They were unceremoniously removed from service. Spare me. Spare me this nonsense. In any case, it's nice to see that they do have principles as long as they benefit them. We're going to take a quick break over here to talk to our something that's actually really pressing. And you guys, don't let it get away from you. We're going to talk about one of our sponsors here, and this is The Wellness Company. You can find them at twc.health/Kyle. Let's go ahead and see what they say. That says, have you ever heard of the theory of the last man standing? That's pretty clear, isn't it? There was a movie about that with Bruce Willis. It's simple. When chaos strikes, you want to be the one who's prepared to survive. Right now, the FDA is pulling the plug on everyday cold and flu meds, similar to what they did during COVID. You think they have your back. It's a government agency, so think again. So what do you do about that? You become the last man standing. You grab the Wellness Company's Contagion Emergency Kit. This is a game changer. It's packed with ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, a Z-Pack, and more. These are hand-selected by doctors to handle respiratory illnesses. So when other people are panicking and they're scrambling and lining up at empty pharmacies, you're already going to be 10 steps ahead and you're going to be at your house. This isn't a story about fear. This is a story of how you self-manage your own insurance and your insurance plan. Quickly, you can fill out an questionnaire online, and then you'll get everything delivered to your front door. There's no hoops. There's no waiting on a failing system. And when the chips are down, do you want to be at their mercy or do you want to be on your own standing? Prepare or repair, folks. It's time to choose. You can be prepared by getting the Contagion Emergency Kit now before they take that away. Just head over, like you saw on the screen. You can head over to twc.health/Kyle. Use promo code KYLE and save up to $30. Plus, you'll get free shipping. I've got the same kit. It's going to be something that I've already broken into. Let's be real. Sometimes I get sick and I don't have any down days. twc.health/Kyle, KYLE. Use that code Kyle at checkout to save up to $30. Get free shipping. This is for U.S. residents only. Yeah. We saw some crazy stuff. It's timely to know that you can actually take control of these kind of things. And that's kind of the thing that the left doesn't like you to do. They like you to be relying on government. don't they? They also like to be obstructionists. Remember, when they want to do this game where they talk about principles, we're going to hear about people who want to resist. I seem to remember an entire resist movement. This is a story. Where is this one coming from? ABC. Illinois and Colorado governors are announcing state-level coalitions to resist Donald Trump's policies. Well, if they're federal agencies, and they are that we're talking about, what powers do they have to resist? Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, Jared Polis of Colorado, they're going to be the co-chairs of a new nonpartisan, sure they are, coalition of nations governors committed to protecting state-level institutions of democracy. They suddenly care about states' rights and the state's power. Not when it comes to abortion, but only when it comes to Donald Trump. This is how this plays out. It's very simple. Let me just tell you, I got a phone call from a buddy that works very closely with the Border Patrol, and they are thrilled. The word that he gave me is that people are flipping out. They are doing things that I cannot say about how much excitement they have about finally being able to do their jobs. The Border Patrol has been emasculated. They have been neutered, and they have been rendered ineffective under this administration. And they are looking forward to letting those dogs off the leash. The folks at ICE, the folks that are going to do ERO, they are psyched to be able to go out there and do the job. And you know who else is probably getting pretty excited? 7th Group, Special Forces, because Latin America sounds like it's in play. It sounds like we're about to see the Trump administration also declare these cartels as not just transnational organized criminal organizations, but also terrorist organizations, and that gives them DOD capabilities. That's like the movie, what is it called? Clear and Present Danger in real life. Like they can get there and do that. I'm here for that. I'm so here for that. In fact, my wife recommended this to me before we got married. We were just talking about the time that before we got married, which feels like a long time ago. It was 11 and change years ago. And it's when she started slowly walking her way up to saying things like, maybe we should just conquer everything that's south of our border till we get to the Panama Canal. I'm putting that on her. She said it. She has to own it. Let's do a little comparison right now. Why people are so excited. I've got a little side-by-side moment for you. This is the old border czar, the woman who just lost the election for president, and the new one. In kind of a little side-by-side, there's some dancing, there's some excitement. Let's take a look and see, why might these Border Patrol folks be kind of amped up?
Up with education, down with deportation. Up with education, down with deportation.
I got a message to the millions of illegal aliens that Joe Biden's releasing our country in violation of federal law. You better start packing now.
We are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. I don't understand the point that you're making.
I hear a lot of people say, the talk of a mass deportation is racist. It's threatening to the immigrant community. It's not threatening to the immigrant community. It should be threatening to the illegal immigrant community.
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
It is not an emergency. We are not facing a crisis.
We have a president of the United States who has created a fiction about a crisis at the border, and he has held up the United States government and its workers around his vanity project called a wall.
To the criminal cartels in Mexico. You smuggled enough fentanyl across this country to kill 148,000 young Americans. You have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. And that's when President Trump gets back in office. He's going to designate you a terrorist organization, and he's going to wipe you off the face of the earth. You're done. You're done.
The idea that he is trying to say that we have people that are trying to invade our country to commit mass crime is a crisis of his own making.
Oh, so I guess we just imagined all that stuff, huh? Interesting. Thanks to the Daily Caller News Foundation who created that clip. There's a little bit more to it. We'll throw it up on the Locals channel. If you guys want to go over and support us on Locals, I'll throw it back up on the screen here for just 1 second. I don't know why I keep saying the word throw up, but there it is. I better not get sick after that. Locals, it's KyleSerafin.com. KyleSerafin.com. Very easy for you guys to do. Yeah, the obstructionism versus sort of the capabilities, we get it. Okay? There's going to be a movement to try to push back against what is being accomplished. And this is my favorite part. Imagine how much resistance there's going to be to this. How about this? You put resist in your work emails, and it's not part of something about your write-up as you brought somebody into custody that needed to be arrested. Maybe you just get the boot. It's pink slips for everyone. This is NBC reporting at this point. Is that right? I think it's NBC. NBC reports. Donald Trump says Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will head a new Department of Government Efficiency. I've been holding on to this for a couple hours. I've been excited to share it with you. This is sort of the meme version of the Bobs. Somebody did AI voices, and I don't know why Vivek just sits there and listens. He's real chatty, so I don't think he would do that in real life, but here we go.
What would you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
You're fired. Get out of here.
Oh, it's so sad. And there's not even a jump to conclusions, Matt. If you haven't seen the movie, I didn't ruin anything. Go and watch Office Space and be aware of the things that happen in your culture. And then also just kind of embrace the idea. President-elect Donald Trump, they love saying that now. God, it must sting every time that these people write this up. Named tech billionaire Elon Musk and conservative activist Vivek Ramaswamy, he's also very wealthy, on Tuesday to head up a new Department of Government Efficiency, fulfilling a campaign promise to give Musk sweeping oversight of government spending. I actually saw a thing about rockets today, about the most rocket launches being done, and the highest number of rocket launches in 2024 is being done by Elon Musk's private company. Then it's a Chinese rocket, and then it's the United States as the government. The man has been more successful on space stuff than the U.S. government. Doesn't mean there's not subsidies happening everywhere. I'm just saying. Let's give him a little chance. The government is wildly bloated and massively inefficient, and it's basically an on-purpose jobs program to a bunch of people that are going to be Democrat voters. So let's clean that thing out. Let's go ahead and give it that little enema that it requires. Donald Trump said on social media that the department will help, quote, dismantle government bureaucracy. Uh-oh. They love government bureaucracy. And it's going to slash excess regulations. It's DOGE for short, which is also a meme. It's also the name of the cryptocurrency, which Musk has gotten himself associated with. It sounded like that was on a run today. So if you were invested in DOGE or whatever the heck you call it, you guys can drop that thing now before it tanks again. I imagine that it's just fantasy world, but people love it. People love the meme currencies. So this is the claim. Elon Musk said it will send shockwaves through the system, and anybody involved in government waste, which is a lot of people, they are all going to get it. Are we a threat to democracy? No, we're a threat to bureaucracy. Sort of love that. It's good stuff. This is what it should be. This is how we get it done. And yeah, take it for whatever it's worth. That's the claim. They're going to try to clean up the waste. I don't know that government can exist without the waste. I used to have a car. Maybe you guys have had this before too. You get an old car and you don't want to wash it because you're afraid if you wash it, like things are going to fall off it. I feel like if you start getting rid of inefficiencies, the government might also fall apart. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for most of us. But just to be clear, like it needs inefficiency. It thrives on inefficiency. Its default setting is inefficiency and always has been. For a very long time, probably since 1913 when they started self-funding. In any case, we're sitting here trying to figure out who else is going to get involved. Let's just keep talking about Elon Musk for just a moment while I'm on it, and then we're going to get on to a couple of things. If you don't know our new Secretary of Defense, I got some interesting statements about there because in the rocket race, there's also sort of a militaristic component of it, and we're going to get into why we need someone who understands the real threats. Having Elon there is not a terrible idea. Check this out. This is the story that I wanted to run full speed, and it's just like there's too much going on to just leave it on this. This was written by Daily Wire. I actually, full disclosure, reached out to Luke Rosiak and shared with him some of this information, so I sort of predated this, but they're putting this under investigation file. It says, fighting its X, the Twitter company, right, which Elon Musk got rid of 75% of the employees, and it still goes. X is fighting the Biden DOJ over secret subpoenas of user data. Now, in and of itself, that's not particularly interesting, except I was one of the people that they subpoenaed, and the other person was Garrett O'Boyle. And somehow we've managed to make it into this lawsuit, even though our names are redacted. I can assure you, we've looked at the unredacted version when X reached out to Garrett. They never reached out to me, by the way. But this is what it says. X is fighting the Department of Justice after it apparently banned the social media platform from alerting. In other words, they put a gag order on it, or a seal, as they say. They kept them from alerting us, and it says 2 FBI whistleblowers that the Fed received data from on their online accounts, documents unsealed in the D.C. Federal Appeals Court on Wednesday show. X argues that the process for obtaining quote-unquote non-disclosures is rife with abuse. That's clearly the case, and the prosecutors apparently convinced the D.C. judge that the FBI agents who were suspended for making allegations suggesting a politicization and also, just add on, weaponization of the Biden FBI were likely to flee the country or intimidate witnesses if they knew that their former colleagues were running an investigation that included subpoenaing their ex-posts. Does that sound like me? Does that even sound a little bit like me? I don't even know where to go with some of this stuff. Prosecutors didn't have to explain their reasons for reaching this conclusion to anyone but a judge, making it impossible to contest. And moreover, it's absurd. I'm not going anywhere. I've got little kids. They must be out of their damn minds. This was January that they served this, and they actually got it. So in January, we're doing the show every day. Where were we going to go? It's absurd on its face. But it continues. X argues that they said that the prosecutors employ vague but heated language about serious risk to the judge with no opportunity to push back. This is the classic ex parte problem. The fact that they put it under seal is a little bit troubling. Usually what happens, unless you're in a national security case, you send the subpoena and you say these are the things, these are the allegations, don't notify the customer, and here it is. We need this record. There's no allegation or information that I've ever been involved in a federal crime, at least not to my knowledge, and I'm pretty confident that I have not. So I guess this is the upside for me and Garrett when it comes down to Donald Trump being elected into office. It's maybe why I feel like it's Christmas. They were coming after us. If any of you need an apology for my snarky language and my distasteful way of dealing with people that say dumb things on Twitter or X or whatever else, or anywhere else, honestly, for that matter, in person, I'm pretty nice, especially to strangers. I don't have my instinct to go out of my way to be mean. Unless you're Julie Kelly, I would do that. But the pressure of DOJ investigating you is not a good feeling, particularly when you know you haven't done anything wrong and you know that they're going to go out there and pursue it, even though they ought not to. So, thank God for Elon Musk in many ways. Is he perfect? No. Is he the hero for everything? No. Is he going to solve all the problems? No, he's not. But his company has been doing the right thing, left and right. They're putting us into space. They're keeping us at the top of the space race. That's something. And they're suing for a basic First Amendment liberty. And this is a really, really big thing. When I was talking to Beans about this over on the Dark to Light podcast, she's like, why Matthew Graves? And I'm like, because it's done out of the District of DC, where they have a favorable judge, where they have a favorable sort of jury pool, if they were to have it, a favorable grand jury pool, and they give default. Tie goes to the government in DC. That's not what America's supposed to be about. We got to roll that stuff back. And it certainly does sound like we're getting it. It's truly wild. Let's pivot a little bit over and talk about something that is not stupid. Our new Secretary of Defense. I've got this little taste. We're losing on a lot of levels. And we've basically taken this group of people that are supposed to be killers and breakers of things. The military's job is to break things and hurt feelings. That's the nicest way of saying that they go overseas and are the tip of our spear. And we've turned them into this social experiment that makes very, very little sense. There's nothing good about any of that. So let me see if we could just throw a little bit of the new Secretary of Defense on here. I know I grabbed a clip, so give me 1 second. These are what the priorities, let's say, this is what they should be. We should be making warfighters great again, I guess. Let's make DOD actually do warfighting. This is from the Sean Ryan podcast. If you've never heard this guy before, this guy's a bro.
There's a chance to course correct it, but it would take the new Trump administration going after it really hard.
How would they correct it?
Well, first of all, you got to fire, you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. Obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, has got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it. And that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. There's a reason people don't want to serve, because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat. I know there were mistakes made on our tours all over the place, but I, at least for the most part, had a sense that my senior leaders were committed to the completion of the mission for the right reasons. And maybe there were strategic differences and all that other stuff, and it wasn't always perfect, but that trust is broken, and you have to reestablish that trust by putting in no-nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
It seems really straightforward. Having a Secretary of Defense that understands that the purpose of the military is to do the thing that the military has done. I'm for it. So there you go. He's a Fox News host. He's been doing that since about 2014. But prior to that, it's worth noting that he's still, I think, he's still in the Minnesota National Guard, which is bizarre to be under Tim Walz, I guess. 2 Bronze Stars could mean a lot of things. This is from the Army side of things, so those aren't always the same. It doesn't say a valor device affixed. Also, the Army Commendation, got the National Defense. That's pretty standard stuff, but he also did the Expert Infantryman Badge, and he has a CIB, just like our friend Garrett O'Boyle. Combat Infantryman, he went to Iraq and Afghanistan. It's nice. It's a guy that didn't make it up into the Pentagon ranks. You always find that if you meet people that were in the military that are officers, after the time they hit, like, I don't know, like maybe like 05, 06, if they do a stint at the Pentagon, they don't tend to come back out the same guy that went in. It'd be nice if we actually continued to have war fighters in, war fighters out. I've got another little thing that he thinks, like, sort of prioritizing where our issues are. It's worth knowing that there is a real enemy and a real conflict that we should be preparing for. It's also sort of telling to learn that the DOD has done the simulations and they don't work out in our favor, and they're not changing their ways. Hopefully this represents a sea change in the way that we see military leadership.
The Pentagon is in the book, the exact amount of years, but in the past X number of years, 10, 12, 15, the Pentagon has a perfect record in all of its war games against China. We lose every time inside the Pentagon war games. We know what our real capability. You see, we didn't even get to this part of the war on warriors. I mean, the military-industrial complex, the way we procure weapon systems. We're always, the way our system works, the way our bureaucratic system works, where the speed of weapons procurement works, we're always a decade behind in fighting the last war. Whereas China, we have, what did Rumsfeld say? You go to the war, the army you have. We have the army. China's building an army specifically dedicated to defeating the United States of America. That is their strategic outset. Take hypersonic missiles. So if our whole power projection platform is aircraft carriers and the ability to project power that way strategically around the globe, and yeah, we have a nuclear triad and all of that, but a big part of it. And if 15 hypersonic missiles can take out our 10 aircraft carriers in the first 20 minutes of a conflict, what does that look like?
Yeah.
I mean, and if they've already got us by the balls economically, which you pointed out very well, with our grid, culturally, there's plenty of elite capture going on around the globe.
And they've pre-scouted out all the targets, which is something I used to work in the counterintelligence space. It's very, very clear. It's not a good situation against the Chinese. We've been playing not even defense. We've been just opening the doors up and letting them in and acting like they're our partner when they know that they're an enemy. And the Chinese do the long game. So does that mean they're going to come after us? They probably don't need to get involved in kinetic warfare, but that should be something that we constantly hold over for the amount of money that we spend on our military. It's absolutely absurd. And also for the quality of people we have in this country that can do it. So it'd be great to see people actually be proud. It'd be nice to see veterans feel like they can actually recommend to their children that military service is not going to result in some sort of gender experiment or some sort of just like frittering away of their lives in some useless way. That's what I hope for. Anyway, I'm a little bit optimistic. Not only is he a warfighter, not only is he obviously pretty well spoken and a decent, he's like physically capable instead of that fat guy that we used to have in there or that we have in there today. Is that wrong to say about Lloyd Austin? He's also educated. Looks like he's got maybe one, but maybe 2 master's degrees from Harvard. That's not nothing. He got his undergrad from Princeton. He's a bright guy. And you can tell by the articulation and the way that he speaks. I'm for it. Last little thing on the dream team here, like we're getting a mixed bag, right? We got some people we're not thrilled about. I'm not super excited about Marco Rubio, but maybe we shore up a better senator in that spot. That's not terrible. So you move him into a space. What about this? Can we see some Kash Patel, please? I don't know who's listening to this that needs to know this, but Kash Patel is my preference, and it ought to be America's preference for who steps into the FBI to try to clean this thing out. We've got Matt Gaetz stepping in to be the AG. So let's do this. Let's put someone young who's got the fight in him, who's been nothing but a team player for those of us that understand, who's seen what weaponized government looks like. And Kash is the most like low-key, chill guy. You know, I remember the first time that we met in person, he walked right past me. Kash walked right past me and didn't recognize me, but I recognize him. He's always got these kind of like loud color jackets on, plaids and stuff like that. And he goes cruising past me, and I'm on the way over with like James O'Keefe and Project Veritas people. I'm going to go stand on the stage. It's December of 2022. My wife's right next to me, holding onto my arm, and I reach over and I go to shake his hand, and I go, "Hey, Kash," and he just gives me this kind of like, "Yeah, how's it going, man?" And he keeps going because he's booking it somewhere. And then he looks over his shoulder and he recognizes that even though we've never met face to face, he finally connects like, okay, that's Kyle Serafin's face that I just saw. And he's already 10 or 15 yards behind me. And he turns, he goes, "Hey man, we'll catch up later. Like, okay, I'll find you." It's like, okay, cool. Not the Last of the Mohican style, but he said he'll find me. And then as we finished the night and I kind of lost track of him and I totally forgot, I got in an elevator. And my wife was pregnant at the time, actually. We get in this elevator, we're going up to our room, and we're done for the night. It's like 10:30 or 11 o'clock. And these people are like, "It's so cool. Like, Kash Patel is just hanging out there at the bar, and he's just, having a Coors Light and hanging out and talking to people." And I went, darn it, I got to go down and say thank you for helping out me and for helping out Garrett and for being a team player that looked out there with the Fight with Kash Foundation. So I just went down there, and, he bought me a Coors Light, and we sat. I'm not much of a drinker anyway, but I'll sit and have a Coors Light with a guy like that. And incredibly low key, like just the least air, the opposite of a Chris Ray, the opposite of a guy that needs to have a security detail to feel like he's important. He's just a good person. And he's been briefed up for the last couple years by me and others about what's wrong, where to kill it, how to squish the evil, and try to like straighten out this terrible train wreck or this mangled track that the FBI has been running on. It would be really good for America. So 100%, I'll throw it back on here again. He's a fierce Trump ally, but he's also a fierce ally to America, and he's a fierce ally to the suspendables. I just, it's in my prayers that he gets named as the FBI director, and I hope Donald Trump hears it and wakes up and thinks, that's it. Let's do it. You guys can call it fangirling all you want. When somebody reaches out to you and you have no income and they send you a check and just say, "I don't want anything from you, and I don't want to ask anything of you. I don't need anything from you. I just want you to be okay, and we're going to go ahead and work with you to make sure that happens. And I have some money that I can write to people that do good things, and I want to write some money out to you. And by the way, anybody you nominate is good enough." And he sent money to Marcus Allen, as far as I know. He sent money to Steve Friend, as far as I know. And I know he sent money to Garrett O'Boyle for a while and kept that family floating. That's a solid human being, for whatever that's worth. Folks, if you're joining us in the live chat, I see you. I do see some of the things you guys have to say, especially when you're snarky, calling me a fangirl. How dare you? Anyhow, if you ever want to know, this is where you were going. I see some of the things you say, and I do appreciate you guys being there for part of the live chat. That is the energy that we like to bring here. We talked a little bit about DOGE. We talked about the Chinese and some of the threats. I just want to let you know that we are a serious nation that is with unserious people. Because look at this. This is the story. I actually already heard about this, and I think we may have covered it. The USS, what is it? New Jersey? It's a submarine. It's designed to be more friendly for women. This is a really good way to have a lot of babies underway, isn't it? Our military used to know that we were a proper country, and our goal was to hurt people and break things and go overseas and project force and power and the nuclear triad. This is all part of it. What we don't really need to do is worry about whether or not women are on submarines and whether or not they can have babies on there, because that's what we're talking about. We're straight up talking about making it comfortable to put men and women. The old joke used to be that submariners, bubbleheads, as they call them in the Navy, are a little bit goofy because 50 men go down undersea and 50 couples come back up. Imagine putting actual women in there. You're in a tiny little space the size of a hallway, and you just live there for however long they're underway. They've been out there designing a specific submarine. God knows how many billions of dollars we spent on this particular project, and they're going to act like it's a victory. There are places for women in the military. There are places where they can go do great work. I'm sure of it. Let's not do it on submarines. Maybe we can get some common sense coming back here. They've got a woman who says she's the first female on the boat to qualify as an engine room supervisor. She got promoted. I'm sure she was the best for the job. The problem is we keep seeing women not being the best for the job getting promoted. And it makes us all kind of look at them suspect. It's like the women going through Ranger School. Did they really earn it, or did they just have to get through? When someone tells you that you got to graduate them, we just think that the standards are going to slip. And there's far too much evidence of it. In my own FBI academy, that was the case. Standards slipped. Women did not have to have the same standard as men. Do you know how I know? Because they evaluated me against women's standards in 2020 and 2021. And I was the most fit and the fastest and the strongest of the female FBI agents between 30 and 39. That is not a joke, people. That is a straight up serious thing that actually happened. Oh, man, you can't make this kind of stuff up. This is actually so stupid and true. But as I said, it does feel like we're getting the right things. If we got rid of any one of these agencies, if we got rid of the ATF, if we got a Matt Gaetz to abolish the ATF, Trump's presidency would be a victory. If he got rid of the Department of Education, which he's been flirting with and talking about, that would be a great victory. If he got national concealed carry reciprocity, that would be amazing. There are a number of things that could be done that are already being proposed, and we haven't even gotten into like we haven't even been 1 month in. We're like a week and a half into this. So bring it on. I'm here for it. I love it. While we're talking about weaponry and guns and masculine things, you guys can support my friends over at Shield Arms. Go to shieldarms.com. Check them out. They are a Montana-based firearms company. They make American weapons in America, Montana, America. And I've been to their factory. I've met the people there. A lot of their stuff, a lot of their ideas are coming from a friend of mine who's a retired Green Beret. He was an 18 Bravo. 18 Bravo. Yeah, he was an 18 Bravo. He was on Donald Trump's protective detail domestically a couple times. I've seen pictures of him with machine guns standing in front of the beast. It's an absolute beast of a human being. And on top of that, he's working there because they give jobs to veterans. This is a 4-shooters company. If you guys want to check them out, it's shieldarms.com. Use the promo code KYLE. Save 10% site-wide. Make sure you let me know that that's coming out and working out for you. 10% site-wide. That's a good deal. They also make high-capacity magazines for your miniguns. If you have this tiny little micro Glock you want to carry like I do, it's a great option. And I do appreciate you, Rose, for always putting that out there in the chat. Check it out. Promo code KYLE for the S10 and the S15 and any of their folding ARs, which are outstanding. Guys, that's it for today. I could probably do 4 hours based on the stuff that we read, but we're going to shut it down for now. We just want to say like all of you that stuck with us on this reboot and all of you that are new to the program, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure that you are following our X account that is just going to be putting this out. It's going to be a backup stream in case anything happens to Rumble and you can't find it. It's at Kyle Seraphin Pod, P-O-D. It's my name. So if you're following me at Kyle Seraphin, just add P-O-D to the end of it and make sure you're following that as well. You guys go ahead and share this episode with a couple of people if you'd think about it. If you go out and share it with 3 people and even one of them turns around and starts watching us, we will double our audience. So I would really appreciate it if you guys did that. Do it for me. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the Wednesday, and we'll see you again on Friday. I will not leave you, though, without our world famous, are they world famous? Probably, palate cleansers. This is a $1 billion business idea. Someone should do it. Maybe Donald Trump will.
Happy birthday from Larry. My birthday was 3 weeks ago.
I think you might want to check the shipping date on that.
October 3rd? He did mail it on time.
That's right. It's not your brother's fault, ma'am. It's ours.
That is unacceptable. He went to a lot of trouble and you guys sat on the package for a month.
You're absolutely right, ma'am. It is unacceptable. At Jiffy Express, we know how important it is to be on time. And we also know that sometimes you just can't make it. That's when you call Jiffy. We'll take the package and the blame.
This was due in Cleveland last month. I could be fired. Can you help me?
No problem, ma'am. You can count on us.
When it has to be there overnight, call the other guys. When it had to be there 3 weeks ago, call Jiffy. First, we'll backdate the receipt. Then our technicians will age the package according to your specifications. We can stain it, soil it, recreate delivery mishap and trauma. Even simulate international misrouting.
And after it got to Hong Kong, well, we just lost track of it.
Luckily, it turned up in our warehouse.
You guys are pathetic. People get fired over this kind of thing.
I know.
There's Rob Schneider doing something. I hope Rob Schneider actually does that business. It's brilliant. The holidays are coming up, so don't forget about our sponsors. If you guys are in the market for any of the things, check out the show description, and you will see that there are a couple of promo codes where you guys can, save a couple bucks. And hopefully you don't need the Jiffy shipping service. Maybe you guys will be on time. I'm terrible about that, for whatever it's worth. I got a thank you note that just went in the mail that is like a year old. That's how bad I am at it. Thanks so much for joining us. God bless all of you. I look forward to seeing you again on Friday, and I'll see you guys in the chat afterwards. We'll see you over on Locals as well. Have a great day.
You've been listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter and Truth Social @Kyle Seraphin.